Welcome to the Essence of Liberty podcast. This is the horsemanship podcast where we discuss all things liberty to help you understand, connect, communicate, and play with your horse in a gentle, subtle, and force-free way. We'll get a bit nerdy about equine psychology and learning theory to understand the science behind it all, and we'll also dive into how to motivate your horse, ways to strengthen your relationship, solving those common problems, and how to use liberty as a way to build your horse up physically, mentally, and emotionally, all in half an hour or less. I'm Dr. Nadine Lindblom, former equine veterinarian, and I'd like to invite you to join me on this journey as a student of the horse. Today, I want to talk about setting your horse up for success so that he is able to give you a big, fat, enthusiastic yes to your every question. Now, if you've watched the free masterclass or if you're in the academy, then you'll know that setting up for success is a really, really big part of this type of training. This type of training where your horse is truly at liberty and he is able to stay or go. Because if you ask a no question, then he's going to say no and he's going to leave. So you have to really think ahead and plan and figure out how you can set your horse up so that he is able and eager and willing to try and to say yes. So we're going to go through 5 different ways that you can do this and how you can set your horse up for success. And really that applies to any you don't have to be doing liberty to employ these 5 things. Like you don't, this can be used for riding, it can be used for starting young horses, it can be used for anything, but it is especially important for liberty because when your horse does have the choice, you are really limited by how you ask your questions and how you set your horse up. Because if you ask it wrong, or if you ask in a way where he has to say no, then he's going to say no and he's going to potentially leave, or he's just going to get frustrated because he doesn't really know how to give you what it is that you are asking for. Whereas if you can ask a question so that he says yes and you're able to reward him and tell him how amazing he is, then instead of him becoming frustrated or disinterested and walking away, asking yes questions then causes him to become more confident and more motivated, which then makes all of the training even better. In the first episode, I talked a little bit about how the training sessions should aim to build your horse up instead of suppress him down into submission. And asking yes questions is one of those ways to really build your horse up because it does increase their confidence and their motivation. So let's dive straight into the 5 different ways that you can set your horse up for success. And the first one is probably the most obvious one, but you want to make sure that he is able to give you the thing that you are asking him to do. This becomes a little bit more important as you start working on more advanced exercises, especially powerful movements or collected movements, that he is actually physically strong enough, balanced enough, and he feels good enough in his body in order to give you that thing. If you are working on those types of movements and he is not able to give you that thing, he is either just not going to do it, or if you have a really, really motivated horse, he's probably going to do it even though he's not strong enough, and he's going to compensate or contort himself into an uncomfortable position, and it's going to be a negative experience for him anyway. So you want to take everything pretty gradually and just make sure that he is physically able to give you the thing that you are asking him to do. And on a more basic level, it just comes down to, discomfort and pain. Is he lame? Is he uncomfortable somewhere so that he can't actually pick up the trot, or that moving in a particular way is actually uncomfortable for him? So if you struggle with, for example, spotting lamenesses in horses, one of the best things that you can do for your horsemanship and for your horses is to train your eye to see these things. Train your eye to pick up lamenesses, train your eye to pick up any abnormalities in the gait, and train your eye or train your feel to be able to feel changes in their bodies as well. It is really, really good to be able to learn how to do these things in order to know if your horse is showing you any signs of discomfort and he's not able to do it. So the other part of this point of making sure that he's able to do the thing that you are asking him to do is not just physical, it's mental as well. Is he mentally receptive at the time that you are asking the question? If your horse has severe separation anxiety and you take him away from the herd and he is absolutely beside himself with the fact that he's been separated, you can't you can't ask him something at that point that requires him to be in a really, really focused and concentrated state, because he's not going to be mentally receptive to that, because he's going to be in a survival state. So that is really, really important, that when you are asking the question, you feel that he is actually receptive to that question. If he's not receptive, you want to go back and bring his focus back to you and ask him something that he's capable of doing in the mental state that he's in at that point. The same goes for what emotional state that he's in. So if your horse is in a really playful state, and this is coming into the next point, but if your horse is in a really, really playful state, he's probably going to find it really, really hard to do something that requires a lot of relaxation. So you don't want to pick one of those moments when he's in the wrong emotional state for what you were asking him to do. But if he's playful, then go and do something that requires a little bit more play, or that requires a little bit more energy. So that brings us into the next point, which is to take opportunities. Taking opportunities is one of the best ways that you can set your horse up for success, because you're literally going with whatever is possible for him at that point, whatever is best for him at that point, and whatever he's most receptive to at that point. So if you bring your horse up and you let him go in the arena or wherever you're going to work him, and he is super, super playful, take that opportunity to work on something that requires a lot of energy. Work on canter transitions, work on transitions in general, or if you are in a more advanced point at your liberty, then you can work on collected movements at that point where he is really, really playful and he's feeling really energetic. If you let him go and all he wants to do is laze around and sunbake, then maybe practice the lie down. Maybe practice something that is in line with where his energy is at that point. So this is a really, really good way that you can set your horse up to say yes to your question. If you look at him at the point where he's at that exact moment and say, okay, what would he be receptive to right now? And how can I adapt myself and my session to what he is receptive to? And you can take this a step further as well, in that you can, within different exercises, you can pick moments or pick opportunities in order to set him up for success. So a really good example that I like to use for this is teaching your horse for the very first time to change direction on a circle. So if your horse is going on a curve around you and you want to switch directions, the very, very first time that you're going to ask that question, you want to ask at the best opportunity possible. So most horses have one side that they prefer being on compared to the other. So say your horse prefers going to the right instead of the left. That means that the very first time that you're going to ask him to change direction on the circle, if he likes going to the right and he doesn't like going to the left, then you are going to change from left to right, because he's going to be more receptive going from left to right, because you're going onto the good side. So if he's going to the left and he doesn't really like being on the left side, he's going to be like, yippee, yes, let's change to the right side. And you're taking that opportunity to teach him something new, and you're setting him up for success in that way. You can take that one step further by sensing where in the arena he is drawn to. If there's horses towards one end of the arena, chances are he's going to be a little bit more drawn in that direction compared to the other. In that way, if you're working on changes of direction, you can change from left to right towards the direction where he's drawn. So if he's drawn towards one end of the arena, you're going to ask him for this change of direction when he's facing away from that side, so that the change of direction brings him back towards that side. That is a way to take the opportunity in the moment in order to set him up for success, so that he says yes the very first time, and so that you can then reward him for doing the right thing. You don't have to do that every single time, like set him up in that way. It's just to introduce the idea so that it comes easier down the track. So those are the first two ways to set your horse up for success. The third and very important way is that you have a very good motivator for your horse, a very good reason for your horse to actually want to say yes, to actually want to try to figure out what it is that you're asking them to do. And we'll take a whole other episode to talk about motivation and extrinsic and intrinsic motivation and how we can use all of that systematically. But for setting up for success, you need to understand the science of motivation and have a good motivator for your horse, a good reason to want to do what you're asking them to do. They don't really see much of a point in doing 12 circles around you, changing direction, doing all different types of movements and exercises and things. Like sometimes that they can get a little bit of a playful boost or a confidence boost through different movements, but that's generally not enough for them to want to repeat it or do it to the extent that we want them to do it. So you need to have an external motivator in order for them to want to try. And when it comes to motivation, you can have motivation in the form where the horse is working towards something good or trying to get away from something bad. I personally, in my training, like the major motivator to be that the horse is working towards something good. Because at the end of the day, this is liberty, and if your horse is constantly trying to get away from something bad, then chances are the horse does not feel like he has that liberty. So I always want the main motivator to be that the horse is working towards something good, and I incorporate food rewards for that. And scratches as well, of course, but mainly the food rewards. So that's number 3, understanding the science of motivation. Number 4 is carefully increasing the criteria or the difficulty of the exercise or whatever it is that you are teaching him. So if you increase the criteria or the difficulty of the thing too quickly, then your horse is either going to feel like he doesn't understand what you are asking him to do. He might get frustrated because you're no longer rewarding him for what used to work. So you want to really thin slice it. And whenever you are going to make it a little bit more difficult to see if he can try a little bit more, it is such a small increase. It is such a small next step that it's almost excruciating by how little it is. So as humans, we generally want to rush ahead, or I'll take the Spanish walk as an example. So I often see people that are in the process of teaching their horse Spanish walk, and the horse learns to lift one leg and then perhaps the other leg, and then suddenly they expect the horse to be able to do 5 steps in a row. No, you go one leg, you do 1 step, you might do 2 steps, you go back to 1 step, you might do 2 steps again, you do 1 step, you do a lift on its own while they're standing still, then you might do 3 steps, go back to 2 steps, so that it is really, really slow increase in criteria. And while it can be frustrating for us as humans to take it that slow, it is actually the faster way to go. And it also decreases the risk of your horse getting frustrated and increases the chance of him continually saying yes to your question. If it gets too hard too quickly, just like for us humans, you're just going to give up and you're going to say, oh, it's not worth it anymore. It's too hard. I don't get it. And then you're going to walk away. So increasing the difficulty really slowly in very small steps is really, really important and really effective. It is one of those things that's like you go slow to go fast. Number 5 is to ask quieter, slow down, and wait more. As humans, we often want to be quite loud and expressive, and we want to go quite quickly, and horses are the complete opposite. So most of the time, you feel like you're moving too slowly and your horse feels like you're moving too quickly. So you want to go slower than what feels natural. And whenever you ask a question, you want to ask it as quietly as you possibly can. I talk a lot about the power of energy and intention in liberty, feeling what it is that you want your horse to do, or feeling the movement in your own body, or being able to picture your horse doing it. That's where you want to start. Before you've even raised your hand, before you've even asked the question, you want to feel in your own body and be able to picture your horse doing it before you ask in a more clear way. And starting at this very quiet point makes it much easier for your horse to figure out what it is that you want him to do, because you are more clear on what you are asking and how you are asking. Going slower also gives him a lot more time to respond to you. Instead of rushing forward, he's going to just get overwhelmed and potentially a little bit stressed, and he's not going to be able to think well when he is in that state. So if you go quietly and slowly and allow him to meet you at that level, he's going to feel much more safe, and he's going to be able to think through what you're asking him to do a lot more easily. Coming back to that waiting though, you don't want to wait so long that he gets frustrated. you want to wait so that he can think through. I mean, wait as in don't rush and don't escalate or get impatient. So allow him to take his time to figure out what you're asking him to do. But if he doesn't get it, then go back a step and show him what the right answer is. So those are the 5 points. We have ensure that he's able to do what you ask of him, take opportunities, understand the science of motivation, carefully increase the difficulty of the exercise, very small steps, and ask more quietly, slower, and wait more for your horse to be able to figure it out. So those are things that all can be applied to all sorts of disciplines with horses, but it's especially important when it comes to liberty, just because we're really relying on the horse's yes. We are always relying on the horse's yes, and if he says no, then we have to figure out how to turn that so that he is wanting to say yes again. So that brings us to the very end of this episode. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support the show, please like this and share it on your Instagram story and tag me in it. Also, if you enjoyed this, then you'll really love the free masterclass that I have available on my website, which is all about how you can get started with liberty with your horse. For those of you that want to dive really deep, enrollments are now open into the Essence of Liberty Online Academy. This online program takes you all the way from the beginning to more advanced exercises and goes through everything in between. But with that, I will leave you to enjoy the rest of your week. I hope you get some time to spend with your horses, and remember, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep exploring the possibilities of liberty with your horse. I'll see you in the next one.